Well, tonight's lesson is kind of interesting because it's about something that people argue about all the time. In fact, we've got a lot of stories and used to be books, now movies. It's about time travel, about time, and we've got all kinds of ideas about men living eons and eons of years ago, or things living eons and eons of years ago as well. And so it's kind of interesting for us to take a look at what time is, so we can understand and know and be able to put things to rest properly according to what God says. Now remember, you're going to have ideas and concepts that come into your mind that are according to the world. And those are called lies. They're not the truth. Truth is from God. However, they're going to appear real. They're going to appear logical. They're going to appeal to your rationale, to your reasoning. And God says, beware. Don't lean on your own understanding, but rather hear what I have to say. Now turn with me to Genesis 1, chapter 1, verse 1. And he gives us an insightful bit of information. In this is encapsulated so much information. In fact, it's just full of things that we need to know about us, about our world, and also about time. Here we go. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Now, what did that say? It told you that there was a beginning. A beginning determines that there's going to be an end. It also tells us that there is going to be something going on in between the beginning and the end. There's going to be a progression of some kind. There's going to be something that is involved in this period. And because we're talking about time, the beginning is when time began. Before that, there was no time. Things went on I was going to say every day, but there wasn't a day. In fact, we can actually use chapter 1 here to show us exactly how long a day was. There are people out there who long to say, oh my goodness, days. They were millions of years or maybe more. Long for a day. But he tells us that in the morning, it was the morning and the evening the same day. So it's the same as what we have talked about here, 124-hour day. A day in which is a revolution of the earth. Not for it to go around the sun, but no, just for the earth to rotate around itself. One day. And so when we think about this, when we look at it, we have to realize all time began then. If you ever go to a museum, which I really don't enjoy doing as much anymore as I used to, because they dwell in evolution tremendously. In fact, if you go down the Highway 84, they've got these different sections where you can pull out and look at things, or if you go up was it Rooster Ridge? Huh?
Rooster Rock?
Rooster Rock, yep, there where that building is, and you go walk around there and look, and they've got all
Crown
these.
Point.
Huh?
Crown Point.
Crown Point. Yeah. What was a rooster? Who knows? Anyway,
Rooster Rock.
something to crow about. But they'll tell you about how many millions of years ago that the gorge was created. Now we do know that if you go down over to the beach over there, you can see the rocks that came down the river and wound up right there just at the edge of the ocean, sitting right there in the sand. Humongous rocks. I mean, some of them are bigger than this building, and is long. And we can see, yes, of course, there was a force. However, what they want to do is they want to give more and more and more and more time, and it evolves into thinking such as time travel and so on. You know, if you ever watched Star Trek, and probably some of you have, and Captain Kirk would be sitting in his chair and he would say, let's get ready to go Mach 4, Mach 5, or whatever. Mach means the speed of light. He's talking about that. And he says, engage. You remember that? I did it real well, didn't I? Except he had a clean shaven face. Okay. Engage. All right, so then you see the screen and the guy with the stars, and they push the throttle forward, and the stars go, ooh, right by like that. You know what the problem with that is? See, if you're a science guy, you already know. For you to go the speed of light, it would require all the force there is in the universe. But you know what's wrong with that? Math tells us, anybody that's a physicist knows that. The more force you give something, because it's bigger, it's going to spread as the force is given to it, to where the mass is all encompassing. So isn't it interesting? God calls himself light when he would be everywhere and have all power. Wouldn't it be? Isn't that no surprise, is it? When we turn to the Word of God and see that. So this beginning of time means that in reality, time began when God said it did, and it will end when God says it will. Now you have to keep that here. And you have to keep that here because of what's being peppered at you every day in the movies, in poems, in songs. If you could go back in time. Well, you can't do that. Don't be silly. Oh, people say, what would you do if you could go back and you could be born in this era or that era? Don't concern yourself. It isn't about that. Oh, I forgot. I'm supposed to be using electronics. Well, that's real smart. Okay, here we go. So, here's what we have. There was no physical realm existed before this time. Before what he says here, the beginning. What we have is, it was a spiritual realm. Now, what does that look like? We have no idea. I can't give you a picture. I can't give you a concept. I can't give you words. I can't tell you a story. I can't do anything to be able to help you understand the spiritual realm. It is something beyond our understanding because all we can understand is the physical. And he says, it ain't that. It's beyond that. And the spiritual realm is very, very different. In fact, things that live in the spiritual realm are not physical. What he says is, I started it, I've created it, and here's what I've done. I've created it, and I've created it for me. In other words, God created, by God, the earth, the physical time, all that we have here, for God alone. It's not for anything else. It's not for you. Do you have control over time? When you look in the mirror, you say, well, I wish I was 10 years younger, and all of a sudden, whoa, man, you are. No, you know, that doesn't work, does it? How many times you tried that? Go home and try it. More? And the reason is because you're not here for you, you're here for God. The physical realm was set here for God. No matter how it evolves, no matter how advanced we get, we're always going to be here for God. That's our whole purpose. God made the world, and God made it for him. And it has a purpose. It's a real thing. He created it with a specific purpose, and that means time then has a purpose as well. In fact, time is very important to us. It's very important because we realize that we're in time. There's a question. Why did God allows Satan to tempt us. You'll notice that we never have an origin of God or of Satan. We don't know where they came from. We don't know when they did it. We don't have an origin of God or Satan. What we do have is we have God who created the physical realm and then allowed Satan to come in. Genesis 3. And why did he do that? That's a great question. That's a great question because it's going to help you understand what's going on in this time we have. He allowed Satan to lure away God's warriors. Meaning, you are a warrior. You are either going to war for God or for Satan. There's no in between. Either you are wholly for him or you are wholly against him. Because your actions are either going to be good or evil according to what you choose. There's a video I watched the other day, and the guy starts off and says, "We are the sum total of what we have chosen to be." And you think, I don't really like that idea. You know what? It's not pleasant. No, it isn't. But because we have made choices, everything that we've done is according to those choices. And Satan will tell you lies. And those lies sound like truth. And they sound similar to the truth. And they're more appealing. Listen, if sin wasn't appealing or pleasurable, it wouldn't be much of a temptation, would it? So when you think about it, God allows Satan to tempt. And he does so for his own purpose. Now, that's a good question. What would be his purpose then? Why would he allow that? Now, as we talk, we'll see why. We'll see more about it. Here's a good question for you. Satan will tempt you with lies, but do you believe his way is better? What do you believe? Because what you believe drives your behavior, and your behavior is going to be shown in actions, and you're always judged by your actions. Isn't that fascinating? So for us, we're in this time. However, we're being tempted on a continual basis. So let's see what it is about this purpose and this everything. Let's go to Jeremiah. I love this particular verse in Jeremiah. It is both fascinating to hear and painful because of what people do. Listen to what it says here in Jeremiah 6, verse 16. This is what the Lord says. Stand at the crossroads and look. Ask for the ancient paths. Ask where the good way is and walk in it. You will find rest for your souls. But you said, we will not walk in it. So, what's the wisdom? What is it we're supposed to do? Which way are we supposed to go? What are we supposed to do in this physical world? How are we supposed to spend our time? You know, you only get 24 karat gold hours in a day. And how you spend each one of them will determine your future eternally. And so we ask the question, yes, time is just a measurement. Time simply means a measurement given from a point in history. For us, how long have we been here on this earth? We have to go back to the point in history in which God said this is the beginning. And he tells us exactly how long ago that's been, a little over 6,000 years. Now, isn't that an odd statement? If you had $6,000 and you look at that's not much. Especially if you're buying eggs. But you know, 6,000 years, that's just too short of a time for us to get from cavemen to spaceship travel. You're listening to the world again. What were cavemen? You know, I submit to you that when you were teaching this morning about the Tower of Babel, what did they do when the Tower of Babel? God confused their languages, and because of that, they were driven out. Many fled for their life. And they went to all different parts of the world. You know, we have ziggurats and temples and pyramids shaped exactly like probably the Tower of Babel was. Because the Tower of Babel says they wanted to worship the stars. If you go look at the ziggurats, they're always east, west, north, south. Always the Stonehenge set up to worship the solstice. And the equinox, is that the old equinox? So, all those false worship was for worshiping the stars. So how do we understand this, that we're in this time, and what are we supposed to do about it? Well, he tells us here, there is a beginning and there is an end. There is a first and a last. And this is all through his teaching. Whoever is last will be first, and whoever is first will be last. You remember all that? He's telling you there's a point in which time begins, and there's a point in which time ends. And all you're doing is marking the in-between. Because you were born at a certain time, you got married at a certain time, you had an accident at a certain time, you almost lost your life at a certain time, you went to war at a certain time, and you measure from these points. Time isn't even a physical thing, it's only that it's in the physical that matters. Because eternity doesn't have anything at all to do with physical. None. And yet, time we can see, the beginning and the end, we can see is physical. Let me ask you a question. What's at the end? Did you know the end for you, your death, is just the beginning of the next time? Isn't that fascinating? What do you think about that? Here's what we know. Everybody has a lifetime to find God. Now, some people, their lives are short. Some people, their lives are long. But everybody has a complete lifetime to be able to find God, know Him, know how to come to Him, have their sins removed, and live in honor of Him. Everybody has that same opportunity. There will be nobody who can stand before judgment and say, I didn't have time. The big question is always, what if you say baptism is necessary, what about those people living in the desert? I always love that, the Ethiopian eunuch is riding along in the desert, and he comes up and says, hey, here's water. Okay, right. I guarantee you, if you want to be baptized, you'll find water to be baptized. James Alloway told us about how he went out there and chopped a hole in the river and they baptized him. Well, that wasn't fun, I bet. That was probably pretty cold. You can ask Amanda about that. Amanda, I couldn't find a way to turn the heat on when she was here to be baptized. And I baptized her in the cold. It was so cold, I had to get out of it and wait. It was that cold. Anyway, she gets in there and I baptized, and she's just shaking like crazy. And when she finally got warm, when she walked outside, it was a January day, I think it was. And she was just so excited, skipping and hopping across the parking lot. Then when Cliff wanted to be baptized, it was nice and warm. I'd figured it out by then. But everybody has a lifetime. It doesn't matter when you started or when you ended, it's a lifetime. It is one life per person. And that means it is one death per person. And so you have to realize that. You have to realize the whole purpose of life is to find God and do as He says. What does He say to do? You've got to live a life that is pleasing to God. That's what time is for. That's what He started for. That's why it will finish. That time will be up. And it will be up either for you or for all of mankind. It will be up. And let me tell you something. Everybody around us knows of people who are much younger than us who died. And we know people who are older than us who died. You've got one lifetime and that's it. Now, God has given you the grace for all who hear Him. Hear what? The call. Those who hear the call. You see, here's the thing. God's put out the call. He's put it out from the beginning of time. Hear me. Know me. He says here in this verse, find the old paths, the ancient ones, the right way to go. He says, go out there and find out which way to go. If you turn one way, I'll tell you, no, it's the other way. If you listen to me, and if we hear Him and do what He says, we'll find redemption. Because He has given the grace from before the beginning of time. I like the acronym that I made up. Of course, I like it because I made it up. But grace means God's response and counteraction to evil. When you think about it, isn't that wonderful? That we can counteract the evil that's in our life by turning to Him. So we're saved by grace. We're saved by the fact that He has given us time to be able to hear Him and come to Him. You know, there are some people out there, even though they've heard the Word, know what to do, then they're never going to turn to it, and one day it'll be too late. And they may say then, oh, I'm ready. It's too late. You remember the rich man and Lazarus? And the rich man says to Abraham, please send somebody, send somebody, so that my brothers can know. And he says, no, you got the prophets. I've been here then. Even if one comes back from the dead, they won't hear. And didn't Jesus come back from the dead? They're not listening to Him. They're not wanting Him because they don't want to do it. But they've got an entire lifetime. And so what we have, we are called by God. Those who hear and obey are the ones who are saved by grace. Now let's take a look at the end of time. Judgment Day. Matthew 25 tells us there's a day coming. A special day in which we will be called into judgment. Now remember, there are two kinds of judgment. And we see that in our courts today. There's a judgment, are you guilty or innocent? Okay, and you're guilty because they prove that you have done this deed, this crime. And but then there's the other part, the sentencing. Well, being guilty of sin is now. As soon as you commit the sin, you're guilty. As soon as you come to God through baptism, you're innocent. But at Judgment Day will be the sentencing. Listen to the sentencing. Matthew 25, verse 31 to 33. Okay. When the Son of Man comes in His glory and all the angels with Him, He will sit on His throne in heavenly glory. All the nations will gather before Him. And He will separate the people one from another as a shepherd separates the sheep from the goats. He goes on to describe how the sheep will go to the right, and he will say, well done, come unto me, you who have worked hard, and to those others he will send them to the left, and he will say, I tell you the truth, you did not for one thing for me, therefore go away to eternity, punishment and righteous to eternal life. So we've got a time coming. It is at the end of the physical realm. Now remember we talked about a beginning and an end. God told us in Genesis 1 there was a beginning. Jesus tells us there's going to be a judgment at the end of time. And what's he going to do? What's the purpose of him having the physical realm at all? And that is to be able to separate those who love God from those who hate him. Well, that's odd. That doesn't make sense. Why would he do that? Now, here's an interesting point here. Look, he's talking about separating the sheep from the goats. Look how he calls the people who are sheep, they're good because they follow the good shepherd. People who are goats are evil. Now, this isn't about animals, you understand. This is about people. And he tells the people who are good, they're going to be with him in heaven. And the people who are evil, they're going to be with him, with Satan in hell. And he's telling us, he's giving this information, what's going to happen at the end of time, what's going to happen at the beginning of time, and in between you just have life in the physical realm. But at Judgment Day, the physical realm will end. Its purpose will be over. So what's his purpose? His purpose is to win the legal separation from Satan forevermore. Now look, we don't understand that. Things are going on that we just can't quite fathom. How is it that he has to win this separation? Why is it that this war has rules and engagement and has a time period and there has to be an outcome? But he's telling us, here's the outcome. I'm going to separate all the people, and it's going to also separate him from God, from Satan. It will be an eternal separation. It'll be a separation from Satan, from evil, from sin, from pain, suffering, destruction, and death. How long? My favorite word. Forevermore. That's right. Forevermore. Forevermore we'll be with him in heaven if you hear his call. This is the end of time. You want to know why he started time? For this purpose, to live without Satan forevermore. You and me, we get to join with him if we hear the call and do as he commands. Time isn't anything. It's just a measurement. It's just what you have. It's just a few years, a few minutes, a few hours, a few rotations around the sun, and you're gone. Solomon says, like a puff of smoke, your life is over. You remember your great-great-grandfather? And what he did? And how he loved his great-great-grandmother? Well, wait a minute. Do you remember their parents? See, we're just gone like that. Just gone. Now, here's the thing. You don't want to be forever with Satan. You want to be forever with God. Don't waste your lifetime, the time you have, ignoring God and following Satan. If you're not right with God, now's the time. If you haven't examined this before, if you haven't thought about this, hopefully this helps you understand why you're here on this earth, what it means, how you're going to live, how you want challenge yourself to live, how you want your actions to be actions that honor God and not yourself or Satan or some other man. Whatever your needs are, you can come forward as we stand and we sing this last song.